There's this woman named Lynn Cox. It's a decent story. She wrote a book called Swimming to Antarctica, and talks about how she jumped off a boat and swam a mile to Antarctica. But the whole story is actually about the fact that she's got a really unique physiology. Is that she can swim in extremely cold waters, and it's a great story actually. She trained to be a swimmer, but it took a gifted coach to recognize that. She only began to speed up at about 5 miles. And so he took her out of a swimming pool and put her into the ocean. I love telling the story. Anyway, there was an excerpt of the book in the New Yorker. That's how I became aware of it. Lynn's not a great writer. She's a great swimmer, but she's not a great writer, which is no criticism of her. But the editors of the New Yorker are really good. And they, in their excerpt of the book, Swimming to Antarctica, that was in the New Yorker, it did a lot better job of telling the story, in so much that they pursued sidebars as, usual. It's kind of how the New Yorker works. And it was in that I learned a lot more about the how hypothermia happens, which is a great metaphor for economic slowdowns. Of a normal person, they end up in cold water, and blood flow is constrained to the extremities to protect the blood in the vital regions, the brain and the center here. But over just in a few minutes, it starves the extremities of oxygen. And so at some point the brain says, all right, well, we got to do a flush of blood to sort of give them that oxygen, right? Which is not a bad idea, except that what happens is that all the cooled blood out at the extremities goes into the trunk and into the brain, and that's actually what accelerates the hypothermic reaction. Anyway, it's a great metaphor for recessions, and why I could see recessions coming from 2 or more years away when I lived in Oregon. Just like capital has a velocity, blood has a velocity, right? So if you're at the extremities, you're able to recognize the delta between fiscal velocity at the edges and fiscal velocity at the core. And at the time I was working in the security industry with tools that are used to protect financial institutions, transactional infrastructure, etc. And so I had kind of my feet in both sides. I had my feet in the places like Jersey City. There's that big one again. I only see them now and then. I had Singapore, the financial district of London, Jersey City, etc., Cyprus. There's a lot of fiscal velocity there. But I lived in Oregon, and I could determine the delta between the velocity in the core and the velocity at the edges. And I think that's one of those things that those who report upon the standard measures of success, the KPIs, they either don't recognize that, or more accurately, they just don't care. So as there's a slowdown, as the delta emerges at the edge nodes, if you will, at the leaf nodes, at the root nodes, those that report on the measures are like, oh, all is well. I mean, here at the heart, the blood just keeps on flowing. All's good. A little bit chilly, but it's not a big deal. But out the extremities, they're like, y'all, it's like 20 degrees colder out here. Again, going back to hypothermia as a metaphor. So, and so that's why the effects, the harsh effects of the 2008 recession began to be felt in 2006 in Oregon. And so when you're in a place like Oregon or any of the other extremities, the effects of an economic setback are felt earlier, and it takes longer to recover. And it's because there just isn't as much economic flow, which appeals to intuition. Except that we can't trust the media to tell the truth. It's not their job to tell the truth. It's their job to let everybody know that all is well. All is well here at the heart. Heart's pumping. As far as we can tell, everything's fine. And there's a reason for that. There's actually a science fiction writer, Ray Bradbury, said in an interview that, they said, he said, what's behind a recession? It's as a journalist says there's a recession, and everybody gets scared, and the flow of money stops, basically. So, and then of course the media mocked him relentlessly for it, but the guy was on point. He knew exactly what he's talking about. And that's why the media is not telling the truth. They know what's going on. Or more accurately, the media is staffed with people who aren't inquisitive, because it's not their job. Their job is to keep cheerleading. Keep buying, y'all. It's Christmas season. You just keep on doing your thing. And I'm not saying that we should. I'm saying that we should entertain. I'm not saying we should stop buying. I'm saying that we should entertain contingencies, which I've been saying for years. I've felt this coming 10 years in advance. And I don't think these are bad times. I think it's good times. This is a really, I don't have a criticism of capitalism in so much that it's insufficiently tuned. It's like an engine that's not been tuned for modern considerations. It's still tuned towards the extraction of resources to the detriment of the valley that it's presuming to serve. It's essentially extractive economics, right? And you could modify it, you could augment it in the same way we augment modern engines. And I wouldn't expect the institutional gatekeepers or stewards to do that. That's not their incentive. Their incentive is to keep the thing flowing just the same as always. It's like running an internal combustion engine made in the late 1800s and saying, no, this is fine. A steam engine's perfectly fine. We don't need to do an internal combustion, electric hybrid. Why bother when this steam engine that was built in 1870 is perfectly fine? That's kind of what it's like. So what we're proposing is something that actually augments at the end nodes, and I think this is a good time to do it. And but I'm not asking for permission because it's not how I roll. Anyway, Mongo just pawn in Game of Life.